From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's PID Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and guess where we are?
We're in the barn.
Yes, indeed. We're just calling it the barn.
It seemed easiest and simplest and kind of reflective of the way it looks and the way we're kind of living here in the Ozarks. It's kind of appropriate, isn't it?
You know, it kind of is. When you first met me, you were very much a city boy.
Yeah.
You have been countrified slowly by the Lord.
Slowly. And there are still many things, I confess, that to my neighbors, look, if things get really bad, I'm coming to your house to borrow like equipment and stuff. So, but I'm a lot more comfortable here now than I would be living back in a city. I say you couldn't pay me enough to go back to a city. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but
if the Lord sent us.
If the Lord sent us, we would go. But if I had my druthers, I'd rather not go back to a city at this point.
Well, at the very least, he wants us here for now.
Right.
So we'll see how much longer. You know, things are changing so fast in the world that you just kind of wonder, where are we in the timeline of end times prophetically?
There are a lot of people asking that question right now. We've addressed that to some degree on Unraveling Revelation since the really beginning with last February in the war in Ukraine, but especially now since October 7th with that terror attack in Israel.
I know everything's changed. And you and I actually, if you're listening to this and you're someone who enjoys Unraveling Revelation, whether you agree with us or not on everything, that's okay. Iron sharpening iron. We love that. But there are a few episodes that are going to be playing in the near future that are actually repeats of previous episodes. So if you watch them and you think they're not being current, you know, pay attention to the opening because you'll see, hey, this was originally broadcast on. Because, just pulled my left ear out almost. Don't want to pull the ear out.
Just the earbud. She didn't actually pull off her ear.
No, I don't pull off my ear. I don't do that. I pull on my ear sometimes. But Derek and I, because we have been working hard in the barn, we've not had a studio in this transition period. And we still don't have the Unraveling studio completely finished. We can't do them because there's been no place to do them. So but we appreciate your patience.
It's getting close, though. If you watched our most recent update on the Build Barn Better project, which you have made possible, and we are truly thankful for that. You'll see what the studio is going to look like. It is the furniture there, which is outdoor furniture, and I think that was a brilliant choice. The colors match the paneling that we found at Menards for the walls, which looks like a distressed barn sort of look on the inside. There are people who, when they see the pictures of it, ask, "Boy, is that tongue and groove?"
It looks like it could be, but it's actually not. It's like 3/8 of an inch paneling or something like that.
Yeah, it's fairly
lightweight,
fairly lightweight, fairly inexpensive, which was what we were looking for. But the outdoor furniture, which is a faux wicker, looks appropriate for the setting, and the colors match. And again, very reasonable as we're trying to be really good stewards with what you've entrusted to us.
Yep.
So a lot of the furniture here is flat packed kind of thing, as we commented during our little update. The cheap
Allen wrench.
Yeah, the complimentary Allen wrench that comes with those boxes. Sort of the symbol of our lives the last few weeks.
Boy, isn't that the truth? I saw the best sketch on the Allen wrench one time, and I grew up calling them L wrenches. I didn't realize it was an Allen wrench.
Yeah.
And the bit was, okay, now find the L-shaped wrench and do the following. And the person's going through, all I find are these sevens. So, yes, if you grew up calling it a 7 wrench, that's okay too.
But a special thank you to our friend Lynn Shepard, who retired, and she has moved here to the Ozarks from the Seattle area, and she has been such a blessing in helping to assemble the bookshelves that we're putting up on the sets, the desks, which now I've got this these two desks put together makes one giant monster-sized desk with 3 Mac Minis on it for video editing. And we've repurposed a couple of tables that we had in the Unraveling Revelation studio in the house. So you finally have a space. You can't see it because this is audio only, but for the past several years,
For
Sharon,
most of the time, we've done PID radio.
Yeah, Sharon has been working on like a corner of another desk in the studio that we had set up, the PID radio studio and the Gilbert House Fellowship room, or the podcasting room, really. Sharon was working on one of those little rolling carts.
TV trays.
Like a TV tray that you'd bring to somebody in a hospital bed.
And it was at the corner of the desk where I couldn't put my knees underneath of it. It wasn't the most comfortable place, but it worked for many years. We were grateful to have that room to do that in. So now I actually have a full desk.
Right,
I'm sitting, and my knees are comfortable.
You're not, because for a while when we were back in, I was trying to figure this out as I was walking out here this morning, that this is, I think, let's see, we started in St. Louis, and then we had
Van Avenue,
moved to Columbia.
Oh, yes, Columbia.
We had 2 places in Columbia, and then we had 3 places in Shelbyville, and then Charleston, and then here. But we did the first couple when back at the Skywatch TV studio. So this is like the 9th. This will be like the 10th location.
I think 10 is
radio.
A good number. Let's just say this is, of course, as soon as I say that, the Lord is going to come along and he's going to say, now I'm calling you to go to this place.
Yeah. Well,
if that happens, then we'll say yes.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yep.
If the Lord makes it clear. But this would be the 10th bunker for PID radio since we started this podcast back in 2005.
Your VFTB studio is actually over there by your desks.
Yeah, the opposite corner of the barn.
Yeah, nice place to record your video. You got a nice background with one of the room dividers that we've got up. They're actually very nice.
They really are. I would be okay with moving it closer that way.
That's
moving
fine.
It like one panel over.
We're happy to do that. We just need to get the rest of the panels up on the wall.
Yeah.
Lynn has been helping with that as well.
Yes.
She knows her way around a saw.
David and Barbara James have been working like crazy to get this done, and they've got a couple of other jobs. One they've been working on for somebody whose need was much more immediate than ours.
Very much so.
And God bless him, Dave's been working with a torn meniscus in his knee.
And his knee is very swollen. He can barely move it. So I get it. I've had that before. So our advice to him was, look, do what the doctor tells you to do.
Yes.
If the doctor says get this surgery, it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. It's an outpatient surgery. You're in there for a few hours. You go home. And you recover for a few days, and you discover that, it's a little difficult to walk on it, but it was really almost impossible before you had the surgery.
Right.
So yes, it does help a lot.
So we're praying that his knee and the recovery time, because he depends on being able to move around. When you're a contractor, that's kind of essential.
I think his knee's been going out for a while. He's probably had that tear that's been getting worse and worse. Because I remember when we first met him. Oh, sorry about that whistle. When we first met him, he was talking about not liking to lay floors because it required being down on his knees, and his knees were starting to hurt.
Yeah. Yep.
He's not that old.
No, he's not. But thankfully for him, that means his recovery time should be pretty quick.
Yeah, because he still runs.
Yeah.
Don't run on that
torn
knee,
meniscus.
David.
He ran a 5K fundraiser. Like, Dave, don't run on a torn meniscus.
Maybe that really made that worse.
Yeah.
But anyway, pray for David. And thank you again. We'll give you more update on the barn at the very end of this. But do we take a break during this program? I can never remember.
We do.
Okay. We'll do it after the break then. If you are brand new to this podcast, we've been around since March of 2005. Derek and I were one of the first Christian podcasts, definitely, probably the first Christian conspiracy theory podcast, because back in the day we really talked about a lot of conspiracy theories.
We're right. We haven't tried to trumpet that or anything like that, because we're not about clicks or merch or anything. And
except for coffee.
Well, yes,
coffee's coming.
Coffee is coming. Yes, but I think you're right, because when we started, Apple was still begging for people to contribute podcasts to the iTunes store,
and they would release the top, I think 100 or top whatever it was. Yeah. And I think at one time we were in the top 10 for all podcasts.
Yeah, that was very early on. There weren't very many. Yeah,
maybe, I don't know, 10.
And when we hit 100 downloads in a month, we were so excited until we realized that the bandwidth was being metered on our survey. We didn't. We were very.
It was back in the day.
We were much younger then.
Well, I think the whole service was younger then.
Well, yeah, the internet really hadn't awakened to the fact that content was going to be the future of the internet. I mean, forget about video. They weren't really even set up to serve up audio in any quantity. So we switched. We used a service. We switched services a couple of times now.
We used one called Apollo.
Yeah. But I'm talking about specific podcast hosting services.
Oh, yes.
Liberated Syndication, Libsyn.
Oh, Libsyn, that worked well, actually.
It did. We use Spreaker now, and if you got the Spreaker app or you're on Spreaker, you can find us there. But really the easiest way is to just get our app because that gets you all of our video and audio content. But the bottom line is we've been around for a while, and you can really tell how things have progressed over the years if you go back and listen to the early. The audio in the early shows is really terrible because we were using consumer-grade equipment and not cheap consumer-grade equipment.
There was no specific podcast equipment back in the day.
No, there wasn't. In fact, I've had to realize over the years now that I've shed equipment that we've not needed. We were using equipment that we really needed early on to get audio into the computer to record, including that compressor limiter that I finally realized I don't need it anymore because now everything is set up. There was no Skype, there was no Zoom, there was no anything.
There was very little prosumer equipment.
Yeah.
Very little.
Very little prosumer equipment, but no specific communications methods for connecting. Back in 2005, there was no Skype.
Right.
And so we used, as we've said before, kind of a Rube Goldberg setup that involved a Radio Shack interface with alligator clips to connect to a cordless phone, and that ran into our Sony Handycam to provide a powered signal that we could run into the laptop.
So it's laughable. So if you listen to some of the really old ones, understand that there are a lot of artifacts in there.
Right.
So yes, PID Radio has been going on for a long time.
And we open a new chapter today with the first broadcast from The Barn.
Indeed. Well, today is 11/4, November 4th. Tomorrow, if you live in Great Britain, you're going to be celebrating the Guy Fawkes night.
Guy Fawkes tomorrow, and then next week, Armistice Day.
Yeah.
Or in England, it's the UK, it's Remembrance Day.
Well, they also call it both. I've seen Armistice in some of the reports out of the UK. It's 11/11 because the peace document, the treaty or whatever you want to call it, the surrender was signed at 11 o'clock on 11/11.
They weren't concerned with the numerology at all, were they?
Yeah. No, not at all, no.
But while this is going on, there are, as we're recording this today, a rather large pro-Palestinian protest in Trafalgar Square in London.
Very large. They're getting larger almost each time.
Yeah.
And the claim is that on 11/11, November 11th, they will have 1 million in London. 1 million marchers in London.
This is concerning for a couple of reasons. First of all, you can understand why Muslims would be marching in London. Those that have relocated to the UK. You can understand why they would be marching in support of the Palestinian Arabs. And by the way, when I use the term Palestinian, please know that we understand that that is not an ethnicity.
Right.
That is just a geographic designation. These are, for the most part, Arabs who were living in the area.
It's like calling someone an American.
Yeah. There is no ethnicity American. Well, I guess you could say the Native Americans, the American Indians, but
even then they'd probably say, no, I'm not that.
I'm not an American.
I'm not Cree. I'm not
a member of this tribe, right? Well, you can understand again why the Arabs in the UK would be marching on behalf of the Palestinian Arabs. But boy, when you get Jews in the UK, when you get nominal Christians in the UK marching on their behalf, it's like, look, you fundamentally misunderstand what this conflict is about. It does not go back to 1973. Now, it does not go back to 1967, 1948. Does not go back to Herzl and the Zionist movement in the late 19th century. This is an ancient conflict that saw a major escalation in the 7th century when Muhammad created his fake religion. Yeah, I said that. I mean it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a religion. Allah is not Yahweh.
No. And I get really upset when I see an Israeli station, I-24,
Mm-hmm.
translate Arab conversations
Yeah.
when they say Allah,
Mm-hmm.
putting the word capital G God. I'm sorry. That's not, to an English speaker, that's not the same thing.
Right. It should not be the same thing.
No.
We should not understand it as the same thing. The more we see of what Hamas did on October 7th, and the more history that I've read of the relations between Islam and the West since Muhammad came on the scene in the early 7th century, the more clear it is that we are serving different deities. Allah, the etymology of that word, or words rather, is al-ilah, meaning the God.
Mm-hmm.
This is an entity who claims supremacy over all. But because God, Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to us Christians, that would include Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity, Jesus Christ of Nazareth being the second power in heaven, the angel of Yahweh, they are not the same as Allah. Allah is a different entity. God does not contradict himself in the message given to Muhammad. And he heard from something.
He did.
But Jibreel, who claimed he was Gabriel, was giving a contradictory message to the one that was given to the Hebrew prophets and the apostles. So that's not the same entity. It's not the same God, small g God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that al-ilah, Allah, is il-ilu,
Mm-hmm.
el-il, enlil, shemiyaza, molech, and we'll come back in Revelation as the destroyer, Abaddon.
I agree with you. I so agree with you. And the other thing is, when we say Arabs, that does not mean that all Arabs agree with this philosophy.
Correct. There are many, many Christian Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the Lebanese are Maronite Christian,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Maronite Catholic. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Roman, a variant of Roman Catholicism.
Right.
They're still loyal to Rome. But there were many, many Arabs who were among the very first converts to Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the only reason most of them are not Christian anymore is because Muhammad and his followers, his descendants, converted them at the point of a sword.
Yeah. Well, that day, sadly, is probably going to be repeated soon.
Right.
But speaking of repetition, even in the United States, we're seeing on our college campuses, young people of all ethnic backgrounds joining together
Mm-hmm.
to chant from the river to the sea.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Hamas chant,
Mm-hmm.
Palestinian chant.
Right.
That does not mean we want some of the land back.
Yeah.
It means they want all of it, which means they want to erase Israel and
Mm-hmm.
the people of Israel from existence.
Right. And it's a changed form of the original chant, which was from the water to the water, meaning from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
Palestine will be Arab.
Yeah.
That's how it went originally. It was changed a bit for English speakers to make it less offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's, when you see it that way in English, it's like, well, wait a minute, there are people already living there who are not Arab. And yeah.
Yeah.
But this is not uncommon amongst those followers of Allah. Their religion allows for two doctrines. One is called Taqiyya, Taqiyya,
Mm-hmm.
which means you can basically lie to the kafir, the unbelievers, in the service of Allah. The other is Tawira, I think I pronounced it right, Tawriya,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially means you can shade the truth in order to say what you mean without saying what you mean. In other words, if I say to you, I haven't got a penny in my pocket, okay, you would assume that means that I'm saying I'm totally broke. That's not what I said. I said I just don't have any pennies.
Right.
I've got lots of Fulton money in my pocket, but I'm just not going to give you any. So that's what Tawira essentially means, and that's allowable contrary to the Ten Commandments, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who said, "Thou shalt not lie." It's not "Thou shalt not tell a little white lie," unless it's in service of man, in which it's okay. That's not what that means. That's not the intent of the law. But under Islam, that's okay. So you will regularly get one speech from a Hamas spokesman or other. For example, the head imam at what's the big university in Al Ansar University in Egypt, which is the oldest and most respected institution of higher learning in Islam. They will deliver one speech when, say, he's standing next to Pope Francis, but then another in Arabic when he's speaking to an Arabic audience.
Well, that's ironic because Raymond Ibrahim refers to that speaker as the Pope.
Yes, the Islamic Pope.
Exactly. Yeah. In other words, what he says is like an edict from Rome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is, here in the West, and Raymond Ibrahim, who's been a guest on A View from the Bunker several times. I've had him on 5 and 10 for Skywatch TV a number of times as well. He's a scholar of Islamic history, and we highly recommend his 2 most recent books. He's written a number of them, very scholarly works, because he's a Egyptian Coptic Christian. He lives in Fresno, California now, so he's here now, but his parents emigrated. He can read the writings of Arabic historians from the period of time in which he's researching, like during the Crusades. What did the Islamic historians in the time of, say, the 11th century write about Richard the Lionhearted? His book, Sword and Scimitar, and his most recent, Defenders of the West, really open your eyes as to what this long conflict has been about. Mm-hmm. And it really, his column most recently emphasized this, that we in the West have very short memories. We Americans don't really hold any grudge, 75 years after World War II against Japan or the Japanese people or Germany or German people. But friends of ours who've traveled extensively in the Middle East tell us that while traveling in Turkey, a friend pointed out a Roman aqueduct, so a 2,000-year-old public works project that was damaged by the Crusaders 1,000 years ago. And this guy was saying, "May Allah grant us vengeance on the Crusaders." Like, what? But that's the Muslim mindset.
Yeah. Well, there's a tiny, tiny hint of that in the people who live in the South, the deep South here in the United States.
A little bit.
There are some, it's slowly going away, but there are some who still believe the South should have won and they don't like Yankees.
Yeah. You don't run into that too much. But
they generally don't, try to kill you.
No. When I lived in Little Rock, the comment I heard from folks was, "Well, y'all are Yankees, but you're nice Yankees." Uh-huh. Bleep Yankees. They're the ones who come down here and buy property.
Yeah, well, while we're talking about the Middle East and what's going on within the Arab world, let's take a look at the Turkic world, because Erdogan is now in Astana, which is the capital of Kazakhstan. Mm-hmm. Kazakhstan is now the head of the Organization of Turkic States. Mm-hmm. And that organization is bigger than you think. Turkic state is not just Turkey. The Turks are a different ethnic group from Arabs. Many of them are Muslim.
Yes.
And
the majority.
The majority are. And in fact, they have an old memory that they ran the world back during the Ottoman Empire. And there's a desire to go back to that. The OTS, the Organization of Turkic States, has a theme this year, heading up on the 100th anniversary of Ataturk's takeover in Turkey.
The dissolution. Well, actually, that was 1922. So we're a little over 100 years after dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Yeah,
but I think it's actually another 100th anniversary that we're coming up on that's being celebrated as Ataturk's ascension to power. Yeah. And he made Turkey Western friendly. Mm-hmm. It was a facade, a mask that was worn to, I think, play for time. give them power to rise up again. Erdogan wants to take on Ataturk's mantle, but at the same time, he wants a return to the Ottoman Empire. Well, the theme this year of the OTS is Turk time. That has nothing to do with a clock and everything to do with a return to the pre-World War I world of the Ottomans.
Right. And even beyond that, to create a pan-Turkic state. There's a researcher whose podcast I haven't been following. It's been difficult since I'm no longer in outside sales, driving 3 to 5 hours a day to keep up on podcasts. But a fellow named Dave Emery, who has produced a long-running podcast, is also broadcast on a couple of public radio stations called For the Record, where he just reads open source intel, basically news articles from publicly available sources, does some research digging into some primary sources, but it's nothing that, any one of us, if we devoted the time, couldn't find. And he's been following this pan-Turkic movement for more than a decade, including the outreach by the government of Turkey to Native American tribes.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
Well, there was a student exchange between some of the Sioux and the Turks, and it was because they emphasized their common Asiatic roots. But when you're talking about pan-Turkic, I mean, that's everything from the western Chinese province of Xinjiang through Turkey.
Hold on. My hand went up, and
yes,
I'm betting many hands across the podcast verse just went up. Pan-Asiatic roots? American Indians?
Yeah.
Pan-Asiatic roots?
Did I say pan-Asiatic?
Yes.
I thought I meant common Asiatic roots.
Common Asiatic roots. Yeah. I still got my hand up. American Indians are Asian.
Yes, under the assumption that they crossed the land bridge from Siberia.
But there are some who say, no, that isn't what happened at all. In fact, more and more studies are showing that story is made up.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if it's made up. If they believe it's true, they're acting as though it's true, and that's what the Turks apparently had been doing.
I would like to see DNA studies because it would be interesting to see, because there are those who claim, talking about Mormons here, who claim the American Indians are Jewish. They are the lost 10 tribes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really sure, but if Erdogan reaches out to American Indian tribes, who many of them are dissatisfied with their treatment.
Sure.
And in this day,
understandably,
in this day of calls for reparations, there are certain tribes who are demanding reparations for what was done to them. I think the way Native Indians were treated is horrific in many cases.
Yeah.
Some were treated relatively well. Most were not. They were driven off their land, put together with other tribes, forced to go to an entirely different state.
Treaties broken.
Yeah, it was terrible.
In fact, there's a new movie. Is it Brian De Palma who just put out that new movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio called Flower Moon or Murder of the Flower Moon?
Yeah, I've seen the previews for that.
And it essentially deals with the Osage Indians who were moved out of Missouri, killers of the Flower Moon, who were smart enough. The Osage were smart enough when they were pushed into Oklahoma to insist on retaining the mineral rights to their land. And then about 100 years ago, when suddenly the petroleum industry began to develop, the Osage found themselves sitting on a lot of wealth, which of course meant that the Anglos, of which I am one, decided, well, we just need to, take that. I've not seen the movie, so I don't know what the plot is about, but that's essentially the underlying historical fact behind the storyline there. But as American Indians found, and as Vladimir Putin has recently said, the Americans are not agreement capable. Yeah, they make an agreement and they don't keep it.
When you say Americans, you're talking about
the American
Washington.
government, Washington, D.C. I think the American people
are entirely different.
That is correct, yes.
And
the
we
elites.
just assume that Washington not represent us. If indeed Erdogan is
that sounds like insurrection.
Doesn't it, though? No. It's called freedom of speech, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But if Erdogan is really reaching out to any tribes at all, he's trying to form a fifth column.
He is, yeah.
Now, if you don't know what that means, essentially most organizations, most buildings, think of four corners. You've got another one, another column, another corner that comes in and pretends to be part of the building when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's there to take it down.
Right. Yep. And the Turks have been very good about that. Interesting, by the way, because their Turkish government is also in the news because the chief fundraiser for New York City's Mayor Eric Adams is now being investigated by the FBI. She's a 26-year-old woman. Yeah, I know. Main fundraiser for New York's mayor. And there are questions as to what kind of quid pro quo was offered to the government of Turkey for funneling money through questionable streams to Mayor Adams' campaign. Now, it's like, okay, he's the mayor of a city. But yeah, the mayor of New York City is in charge of more people than most of the heads of state on planet Earth.
Yeah, there are certain mayors, Chicago, L.A., New York City, Washington, perhaps a few more, that have such power that they themselves go to seek out foreign investment. We'll put it in that air quotes.
Mm-hmm. So the Turks, and we see this with other nations too. This isn't unique to Turkey.
No.
The government of Qatar, the government of Saudi Arabia have China. China especially found it very, very useful to finance research in American universities and just funnel that research back to their own nations and funnel the cultural and educational influence through those universities, training up a bunch of kids who think China's great, Qatar's great, the Islam is great. It's it's all
brainwashing.
Yeah.
Why? Our government never brainwashes. We shouldn't allow other governments to come in and try to brainwash our kids.
It's only propaganda when the other guys do it.
Exactly. Look, why spend all that money, China? Just send your people in through our southern border.
Oh, yeah.
They will get paid to be here.
Yeah. I was just looking at that this morning. What is it they've found like in recent days? And this is shocking considering the what's happened on October 7th. I mean, we should have closed our border a long time ago. I think we may have mentioned in a previous program, I know I mentioned it on 5 and 10, how Customs and Border Protection were ordered by their superiors in Washington to weld open the floodgates on the border fence in Arizona. And so the cartels that are charging people to get them to the border are just driving up in buses and letting people out, and they're just walking through the gullies into Arizona. But they found 24,000 Chinese nationals just this year.
Yeah, where are they coming from? There are Africans coming through too. There are people from all over the world that are coming through, and some of them are families. But as with those who are coming into Europe and also the UK, they're mainly soldier age young men. Men of fighting age, yes. 7 million have been encountered by border protection since Joe Biden took office. That does not count the 1.5 million known gotaways, those who were spotted by border protection but then didn't get caught. We don't know how many got in and weren't spotted. So we probably are looking at something like 10 million illegals that have crossed into this country in the last 2 years. That's getting close to the population of Israel.
Yes. It's
they
actually,
have 14
roughly.
million?
No, Israel's population is about 9.5 million.
Oh, okay. That's the population of Israel then.
Just within the last 2 years have crossed into the United States illegally. But look, Chinese folks, why are they not flying into LAX? Why are they flying into Mexico City or wherever and then crossing over the border illegally? Because they don't want to go through normal channels.
Because they won't make it.
Because they won't make it, right. And this was something I was talking about when I was doing the daily talk show in Colombia back in 2006. I interviewed the head of the Border Patrol Union. First name was Al, can't remember his last name, but we were talking about OTMs then, other than Mexicans who were and the numbers that were being caught crossing the border.
And this was during the George W. Bush administration. Right. So no, it's not a Democrat-only problem.
Yeah. And the number who are being caught by Border Protection who are on the U.S. terror screening data set or the terrorist watch list, 172 in fiscal 2023, which was October of last year through this September. That was just on the southern border when all places of entry are added, land, sea, air, those who were dumb enough to try to get through an actual port of entry. It's 736 were caught. These are, you can still hear the highway outside.
That's one of those trucks that Sam would have barked at.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sam, we'll tell you more about our search for a new Sam T. Dachshund, but that'll be after the break.
Yeah. Using a Jake brake, that's illegal. Yeah, well, we're not inside city limits, so it's not. Anyway, so 736 people on the terror watch list have been spotted just within the last 12 months, during the last fiscal year. During the last couple of years of Donald Trump's administration, 2017 through 2019, total of 11 people on the terrorist watch list. 11. And just within the last year, 736 that we know about.
Yeah, that we know about.
So,
how long are we?
We need to take a break.
Okay, well, we will get to the free speech rant after the break.
Our October special held over through November.
Hi, everybody. Believe it or not, this is October, and that means you get a brand new GHTV special offer.
We're approaching Halloween, the time of year when the world around us is focused on ghosts and goblins and devils and demons.
But they're real.
They're real, and we'd like to give you good information about those entities with our October special. First, our book Veneration, where we analyze the ancient cult of the Nephilim, the origin of demons exposed in this book. Vicki Joy Anderson's important book, They Only Come Out at Night, about night terrors and sleep paralysis.
You need this book at home for your kids and grandkids. Trust me, it is a great book.
And 7 hours of audio interviews with the late Dr. Michael Heiser about the nature of the unseen realm.
Oh, this is a collector's disc.
It really is. Altogether, these 3 items purchased separately worth $65 during the month of October, just $35 plus shipping and handling. Take advantage of this because this is good, solid, scholarly information, especially the content from Dr. Heiser.
It is, and particularly this month, you want to be armed with the truth when your family asks, what about witches? What about wizards? What about these things at Halloween? What do we do with this? It's a time to teach.
Absolutely. Take advantage of our October special offer. Veneration, They Only Come Out at Night, and The Unseen Adversary, yours for just $35 plus shipping and handling only at gilberthouse.org/store. Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. We hope that you are sitting there with your cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever and enjoying the beautiful Saturday. Not Sunday, it's Saturday. It is beautiful here in the Ozarks. It's going to be probably in the high 60s today. Sunshine like crazy. If you follow me on Facebook, I posted the pictures of these terms are just changing every day.
It's not X, it's not Twitter anymore,
no,
it's X.
I posted photographs of our dawn. The sunrise at this place is so beautiful, and you always post the sunsets. So we're grateful for a sunshiny day because we know winter is coming, and not to invoke any sort of theme for a TV show. But winter is coming eventually, and generally it's a little bit gray now and then, so we're enjoying the sunshine.
Quite a change from last weekend when I was in North Dakota. And
yes.
Thank you to Rod and Wyatt Furno for inviting me up to the Pitchfork and Hoe gathering. I was able to successfully bring home a couple jars of homemade preserves.
Oh, they're so good.
Choke cherry jelly, which I've not had since my grandmother was alive. We don't get choke cherry much down here in the Ozarks. That's really a Dakota thing. Also, strawberry rhubarb, which was something that she grew a lot of. Mom grew a lot of rhubarb in Chicago and made a lot of rhubarb pie, rhubarb crisp. So the strawberry rhubarb, the choke cherry, well worth the trip. But very nice to see people who came in. Stephanie Davis, who was on our Israel tour back in the spring, drove all the way down from Minot to Valley City, which was especially given that the Thursday night, the night before I flew out, they had 5 inches of snow, and it was more to the west.
And then ice.
Yeah. And then ice. Yeah. Mom's hometown of Harvey, which she had to go through to get from Minot to Valley City, had something like 11 inches of snow the night before. But they know how to deal with snow in North Dakota. The plows were out there getting those roads cleared very quickly. And a wonderful gathering because the whole theme of the Pitchfork and Hoe gathering, and I've got an interview, by the way, with Wyatt Furno, who will be next week's podcast episode on A View from the Bunker, because it's neighbors helping neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really
like around here.
Yes, but it's something that's lost in a lot of cities. I know that growing up in Chicago, we knew most of our neighbors going up and down the block. But the older I got, and the more that we move out the burbs, we knew the neighbor on the one side, didn't really know him on the other side, knew the neighbor across the street, and that was about it. And it was kind of that way when we lived in St. Louis, knew the neighbors on either side, a couple houses down, and that was because their son was about Nicole's age. And but we've lost that as we become more urbanized.
Yeah, I think most of us, even in the country, that we've lost that, hey, let's go visit the neighbors. And in the country, you have to drive to the neighbors, especially here because there's no shoulder on our road.
Yeah.
So good luck if you decide you want to walk anywhere. We promised before the break that we would talk about our search for a new Sam T. Dachshund. We have applied and been approved for adoption through some local shelters. They're no-kill shelters, so they're wonderful places. Many of them have senior dogs, and we're very much interested in that. Sam was a senior when we got him. Mm-hmm. He kept going, though. He lived a long life. He was almost 20.
I think the country lifestyle suited him. He loved going outside, especially after Jack had just gotten done cutting the grass. He'd go out in the yard and just kind of find a good spot, and then he'd just roll around in the grass, come back covered with grass clippings. But,
so we're looking for another dachshund, if at all possible, or a dachshund mix or some kind. So anyway, we're going to go visit some shelters over the next few weeks. We want to remind you, by the way, that we are going to be, speaking of the next few weeks, we are going to be in Blue Eye, Missouri on the 17th, which is why Derek and I don't plan on adopting today, because it would mean, having a dog that you have to leave with our wonderful friend Eileen. And you want a dog to know that you're not going to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you first get them, especially a shelter dog, they have to know you're not going to leave. Somebody's going to be there all the time, that they are safe.
Yep. So that will probably, anything that we do regarding an adoption will probably wait until after mid-November.
Yeah.
Because we'll be down there at Blue Eye, probably talking about the situation in Israel.
Probably.
As I understand it, Dr. Bill Forstchen is going to be Skyping in. And
I wish you were going to be there in person.
I would love to meet him. He's written a couple of books, fictionalized accounts of how what happened October 7th in Israel could happen here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I think the book was titled Day of Rage. It's a novella, so it's a quick read, but it's frightening because it's plausible. So anyway, he'll be talking about that via Skype, and then we'll be just adding our comments and blathering, and probably talk about why we think this is a spiritual war. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, military man, 5 decades of experience in the military and inside the Pentagon, saying flat out, this is a spiritual war that is taking place. So if you're in the Ozarks, Friday, November 17th, we will be there. The recording sessions start at 11 and usually go to about 11-ish. Yeah. They've got a wonderful little cafe, so you can go there, get a nice burger for lunch. Really good
I think
food.
They've got Mexican food now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's what I last saw.
So, there will be details on our app, by the way, gilberthouse.org/app to get the app, or pidradio.com/app. We got it there as well.
It's all over the place.
And you can go to the calendar section for upcoming events, and you'll find not just the information there, but a little map that'll guide you right to the recording session there at Morningside, USA.
That's going to be fun. When we do get a dog, he or she is going to love coming out here.
Yeah.
Hanging out with you.
Do not mark the equipment, please.
No, I don't think. Seriously, I'm not worried about that.
No.
We'll figure that out. Sam learned very quickly. He was already house trained, but dogs, when they're first in a new place, there's always a possibility of forgetting training.
True. But
we'll put it that way.
Sam was good because we moved him several times after we got him.
We did, and we move furniture all the time.
Right. He'd come into a room and see everything is. I'm going back to my bed.
She's moving a chair. I'm out of here.
But he enjoyed going to the Skywatch TV warehouse in my office over there,
and he loved the Pony Ranch.
Yeah. He considered himself king of all he surveyed, but that's kind of a dachshund.
That is
attitude,
so very
dachshund
true.
Trait.
Want to once again thank everybody. The barn is, as we've said earlier, it is just about finished. Just need the panels up, and we will finish out the set. I'm going to dress it. Got few more things in the house, including a really large television that's mounted on a rolling
cart,
platform, that needs to be readjusted so you can get presentations. But our good friend Drew is going to come over. He and his wife, they both lift weights.
Yeah.
Can you lift this weight? It's called a television.
Here you go. Just here, strap this on your back.
There you go.
So
He'll do it with one hand.
Yeah. So we'll bring that out here, and that will be something that we can use for presentations. And this area is going to be so flexible for the various things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to have done it, I mean, we wouldn't have done it coming up with the money out of our own pockets.
No.
But to have done it for what it actually cost has been actually, I'm just astonished at the transformation. The impact for each dollar has really been maximized.
It's amazing. Well, that's one reason that I wanted to get the garden yard outdoor furniture for our set. Not only was it good looking, it was on sale because it's the end of the summer.
Exactly. Yeah. So it looks good, and again, just a reasonable, a very reasonable cost. Certainly a lot cheaper than buying. I mean, my goodness, you go for a nice looking wingback chair or something. It's like, okay.
And we couldn't find any used ones because they're snapped up so fast.
Yeah. One nice looking chair like that. I mean, that's that entire, those two sets.
Oh, yeah.
That we got
Plan on spending, $700-800. So, yes, free speech.
This is, boy, it is really interesting the way things have transformed here, and the lack of self-awareness by some of those who are, and we've seen this over the last couple of years, that, the whole punch a Nazi theme that has come out, especially in since the turn of this decade, really, since 2020. Bill Maher, who is no conservative, no friend of conservatives, really, but he, as a liberal who actually thinks things through, is kind of, I think, stunned at what's going on. He actually said in his program this past week that the kids who are protesting, the college kids who are protesting and demanding that anyone who disagrees with them be shut down, that there should be no free speech for anybody who supports a particular worldview, and particularly a conservative Christian worldview. If you oppose, say, terminating babies in the womb, you should not be allowed to speak. If you hold to a biblical standard of sexual morality, okay, then you should not be allowed to speak freely, because clearly you are a hater who wants to commit genocide against a whole group of people who've chosen a different lifestyle, which is completely untrue. But Maher's point was that the people who were shouting about the guys carrying tiki torches at that rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, several years ago, are now the ones carrying the tiki torches themselves. In other words, what he's saying is they've become the fascists they claim to hate.
In the run-up to World War II, post-World War I, there was a lot of poverty and dissatisfaction in Germany. Hitler's rise to power was done on the backs of these disgruntled protesters.
Yeah.
On the backs of writers and musicians and those who espoused a different lifestyle than what was considered the norm. Very similar to the very vocal leftists that we see today. That is the great irony.
Mm-hmm.
What is considered the far right belief system of Adolf Hitler was bred in an atmosphere of leftist thought.
Mm-hmm.
And when he finally became chancellor and ran Germany, one of the first things he did was turn to those groups that had helped bring him into power, and he eradicated them.
Mm-hmm.
Either shipped them out of Germany because they were deviant, as far as he was concerned, either not genetically pure or their thought system was impure. You had to get rid of them. So they helped bring him into power, and they were almost the first ones to go. We are seeing a very similar run-up to the Antichrist. Antichrist, I think, is going to be very similar to Hitler, except on a worldwide stage.
Mm-hmm.
when he rises to power. You can literally strike that. I'm looking at you.
Okay.
Looking at you, Derek. When he rises to power, he will then take these leftist, liberal, progressives, whatever you want to call them, those who put him in office, and they will be gone.
Yeah. And if they think that just won't happen, just look back at the Weimar Germany and that very permissive sexual environment that existed in Berlin.
Yes, absolutely. Anything went.
Right. And as you pointed out, we talked about that this morning, the
musical cabaret.
The setting of the musical cabaret. The earliest experiments in what is euphemistically referred to as gender confirmation surgery, really gender reassignment, but even that's a misnomer because you cannot reassign gender. Anyway, what were those first experiments and surgeries were performed in Weimar Germany 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And when Hitler came into power, the homosexuals and the gypsies and, oh, yes, the Jews, those are all marked for extermination.
Yes, all the people groups that make us feel oogie.
Yeah.
That day is coming, and it's beginning now with the free speech essentially being controlled, not being free anymore.
Right.
And, ironically enough, and I think I've mentioned this on PID radio before, is that there are those here in the United States, organizations, NGOs, whatever you want to call them, that are using the idea of controlling a narrative to keep dissident thought off the internet, to use legislation to control that idea. And one of them is called the Aspen Institute. And the Aspen Institute is associated, strangely enough, with Prince Harry. I know. Prince Harry just strikes me as someone who's really not very much of a deep thinker, but he is someone who has a very public persona. We all know he's part of the royal family. No, he's not acting for the royal family anymore, but that's not, I don't think that is well known by everybody. They may just think, well, he's part of the royal family.
No.
He's really not. He's essentially been, okay, go off and earn your own money. But he is on the board, I think he's actually on the board. He's part of the Aspen Institute and a number of other organizations that are using legislation and or lawsuits to control media. And because we are now in a time of, as you mentioned earlier, social media posts that are anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Jew, however you want to call them. Any opinion that doesn't fit the official narrative of the moment will be struck down.
Yeah.
Therefore, speech will not be free.
It's. You want to see what that looks like? Just go back and reread 1984 by George Orwell, because the narrative of the moment will change from year to year. Things have changed so rapidly over the last 10 years. We've speculated before that the Mayan apocalypse of December 21st, 2012 might actually have occurred. We just didn't recognize it for what it was.
I think it changed something. It brought us through a portal of some kind into an entirely different universe, it feels like. But
I'm looking at the Aspen Institute of...
good.
The Commission on Information Disorder.
Yes.
Commission on Information Disorder.
That's part
at
of the
Aspen
new
Institute.
Artificial intelligence thing. It's got disorder and disinformation and all these disses in it.
Right. The Commission on Information Disorder, which includes the co-chair is Katie Couric, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great.
And yes, Prince Harry is on that board. He's one of the commissioners.
He probably just gets a paycheck for it, but the fact is that he hates the media. Unless, of course, the media is telling their story, their truth. Because as we're finding out, it isn't just Harry and Meghan who have a truth of their own. These days, everybody has a personal truth, and therefore that truth has to be respected. But you and I know, Derek, and you listening know, there is a capital T truth.
Right. Truth exists. It's the idea that everybody's got their own personal truth is a self-refuting claim. Because what they're saying is there is no absolute truth. Yeah. And to that, you just ask one question. Is that absolutely true?
What you're saying is this is your viewpoint.
Yeah, yeah. But, if there is no absolute truth, then is it absolutely true? Yeah. Okay. Well, it means then you're saying there is absolute truth.
No, good, stop.
Shut up. So anyway, yeah, you're right, though. It is a worldview that is facilitated by lack of deep thought. And I think you were very, very kind in the way you described Prince Harry. He's not a deep thinker.
He's not.
But most of the people who are out there protesting, coming back to the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests.
Chanting from the river to the sea.
The folks who do not identify as Muslim, who are participating in these protests, do not understand that they, like the libertines of Weimar Germany, will be first against the wall.
Well, I know that you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, you shouldn't be able to express anti-Semitism online. I don't like anti-Semitism. I think it is absolutely spiritually evil. I think any human group is spiritually wicked. But if you go and say, all right, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, you have to take out every person and every post that is anti-Semitic. All right, that makes us feel better. Now take out every post that is anti-Christian. Now take out every post that is anti-woke. Now take out every post that is pro-woke. Now take out everyone that is pro-Christian. Now take out all the ones that are pro-Jews. Now take out, it's absolute control of the narrative. Eventually, there will be right think. Yeah,
right think and wrong think. And freedom of speech means, by definition, you have to protect some speech that is offensive to others. That's just what it means. If you get a government bureaucrat making decisions as to what is allowed and what is not allowed, well, then you're on your way to having Big Brother in 1984.
Exactly.
And we have always been at war with East Asia.
Free speech means that you are free to disagree with me. You're not free to threaten my life. That's actually
that is
illegal.
Beyond the pale.
Yeah, if you actually threaten my life, that's illegal.
Shouting fire in a crowded theater. I know that's an old example that's used. That's where you're putting people's lives in danger.
Exactly.
That's not considered protected speech. But saying nasty things about, these kind of people are all, bad. Okay, that may be offensive.
I don't like you for that. I'm going to block you so I don't have to see you.
Yeah.
But you have the right to say that. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking, no, they don't. There is an old saying, and I wish I could remember the gentleman who said it. I think he was a priest. But he talked about they came for this group, and I said nothing. And then they came for this group, and I said nothing.
Is it Bonhoeffer?
Possibly. And eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me.
Martin Niembler. So I was right. It was a German Lutheran pastor. But first they came. It was written in 1946, post-war confessional prose.
So the reason that is applicable now is because if the anti-Semitic rants were all taken away, we'd say they came for the anti-Semites. And we said nothing because, frankly, we don't like them. Then they came for another group that we don't like very much. Then they came for someone else. Well, I don't know. But I won't say anything because they might come for me next. It's a very uncomfortable position to be in, but if you're going to allow freedom, here's the thing. The Lord gave us free will, which means we can choose to be really stupid.
Yeah.
And we can choose to ignore him. We can choose to ignore all of the evidence in creation. We can choose to ignore the Bible. We can choose to ignore every person who's ever witnessed to us about Jesus Christ. We can say no. We can choose to send ourselves to hell because that's what that is.
Right. God created us with free will, created the spirit, the unseen realm, the spirit realm with free will.
Yeah.
And he does not abrogate that free will.
No.
He makes clear what the consequences of that choice are. Is the complaints of the skeptics. How can you worship a God who would send people to... Look, he's just saying you've got the freedom to choose. Here's what the consequences of your choices are, but I'm not going to force you to comply. And people complain about that.
One of the ways that these bills in the West, at least I can't tell you any about those in China or even South America, but the United States, Europe, and Great Britain, the bills that are meant to protect children are actually worded in a way that constrains free speech. It reminds me of those drugs that are meant to cure cancer or Alzheimer's. They often are pushed through using those narratives. Oh, look, everybody wants that. But the fact is that they don't really help you. In some cases, they hurt you, but they make a lot of money.
Yep. Well, we've seen a lot of that in recent years.
Who benefits?
Yeah. Always the question to ask when you hear a news story or see a news story, is it true? And then number two, if, regardless of whether it's true or not, who benefits if I believe that it's true?
Yeah.
What narrative is being pushed? Interestingly, this past week, as we're talking about narratives and speech, here we are dealing with the aftermath of the worst terror attack on Israeli soil, their biggest loss of life since the fall of Germany in 1945, Hitler's Germany.
Yes.
This past Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris announcing the White House anti-Islamophobia initiative. Like, really?
Read the room.
Oh, yeah. She did read the room and she flipped it off. It's like, did the White... You just got to wonder, having read for a couple of years now, the tension inside the White House between Team Biden and Team Harris, whether the Biden team just sent her out there and said, okay, we'll give this to her. She'll think this will be a really great thing. Because to go out there and make that statement
in this atmosphere
on the same day as that Hamas spokesman gave the Arabic language interview, where he basically said, we will keep committing October 7th attacks again and again. We'll do it 1,000,000 times if necessary until the occupation is ended. And the interviewer, clarifying, said, you mean the occupation of Gaza? No, of Israel.
Yes.
So on that same day, the White House announces an anti-Islamophobia initiative because, according to Vice President Harris, Muslims in America have suffered a disproportionate number of hate crime attacks. I mean, that statistically, that is just not true. But
right now, we are still in an atmosphere where you can post pro-Israel content. You can share that you want to pray for Israel. The day's coming when that will be gone.
Yeah. And as we say this, I will just want to make clear that when we've traveled to Israel, we have had no qualms whatsoever about crossing the border into Jordan and going into Jordan, spending days there.
Wonderful people.
The Jordanian people, very friendly, very accommodating.
The Arabs in Jerusalem.
Yes.
Very friendly, very just cheerful.
So this is not a thing where we're just going to say, well, all of those people of that type, we're just going to strike them from the list and we will never. That's not it at all. But we have to be wise as serpents while being gentle as doves. And the fact is that we've got a 1,400-year track record of Islamic thought and practice on which to draw. And we in the West, as I said, we've forgotten World War II. Germans, Japanese, they're fine. They're our best buddies now. But Muslims are still upset and angry and looking for vengeance about things that happened 1,000 years ago. And that's just the way they are wired. It's their tribe against the rest of the world. And if you're not in their tribe, you're against them. Now, many people don't live it that fundamentally, but that is fundamentalist understanding of Mohammedan teachings.
And thank you for saying that, because from what I can gather, there are many, many families, people living in Gaza,
Yeah.
that are not in favor of what Hamas did, or
Absolutely.
in favor of what they are currently doing.
Right.
They are being used and abused by Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of Hamas, and getting back to the whole war, getting past free speech, and I just want to reiterate, just to confirm before we leave the free speech topic, that I am not in favor of anti-Semitic. I'm not in favor of any anti-group narratives.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
I think everyone is deserving of Christ's message.
Amen.
Everyone
Amen.
is deserving of love.
Right.
Everyone. Just like I think every animal is deserving of love.
Mm-hmm.
But that event, the whole Israeli war, is going to be used and is already being used to control speech on the internet. And eventually it will be used to control speech at home,
mm-hmm.
because you will be followed in some way.
Oh, yeah.
Already banks, by the way, we're going to get into, sorry, the wrong thing. Banks are following you through your purchases.
Yeah.
And NatWest in Great Britain has used a tracking device,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a third-party app, but it's a way to look at your purchases and, oh, hey, your carbon footprint's really high. You shouldn't be buying all that meat.
Yeah. There are a couple of banks in Australia that are doing something similar,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to get their customers to reduce their carbon footprint.
So it isn't just free speech, it's freedom.
Freedom, period, which is ultimately the goal. I mean, that's what
Mm-hmm.
the climate scare is about. They couldn't scare us with the global pandemonium.
Yeah.
But now we're back to the climate. But NatWest tracking customer purchases and offering recommendations. I mean, I find it really annoying and offensive that when you use certain travel services online,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to purchase carbon offsets for you? No, I don't want to purchase a carbon offset.
Why would I do that? That's
it's a scam. But that is how it's going to work. And as we move into a world where cash is less and less accepted, which is the direction they're pushing us, it will be easier for them to control us. In fact, there was a real problem here in the United States yesterday, Friday, November 3rd, as the automatic clearinghouse, I think that's what the term ACH stands for, was offline for hours yesterday. And it was a crisis, the automated clearinghouse. People who were waiting for their direct deposit, their paychecks to go into their bank accounts,
Mm-hmm.
were not seeing the deposits made because ACH was offline. Something happened. So a lot of the big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, they were really having to deal with a lot of very angry customers.
I think it's more than just the big banks. There are a lot of small banks that use ACH.
Yeah, I think it was the biggest. Well, it was more noticeable, I guess, because of the biggest the biggest system. But this was quite a crisis. I mean, the fact is, most people anymore are living paycheck to paycheck. So if that Friday paycheck doesn't go into your account, you get problems.
Well, sometimes you might make purchases that, with debit cards, the money goes through, especially at where you tank up your gas tank, you fuel up. It will go ahead and take out $50.
Yeah.
Assuming that you might only put in $10, but it will go ahead and pre-approve you for $50 before it allows you to pump the gas.
Right.
You may not be able to do that because you may have only $10 in your account, but you are thinking, okay, my paycheck is going through. Suddenly you can't tank up.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly you can't buy your groceries.
Right. I had something, just as an example, not to make everything about me, but, in my world, everything is about me.
It's your truth.
Yeah, it's my truth. Had a problem back in Philadelphia years ago where in Philadelphia, at the time anyway, in Pennsylvania, when you deposited a check, they didn't put a hold on your account for the amount of the deposit. They put it against the original balance.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But anyway, because I deposited my paycheck, because I put money into my account, they put a hold on the entire account because what I had in the account was less than the deposit. And so my rent check bounced. So when you get an ACH problem like this and you're wanting to use, say, a automated bill pay, which we use a lot, suddenly you've got a problem. I was not aware that the automated the ACH. Now I just forgot what the rest of the clearinghouse. Thank you.
It's like a publisher's clearinghouse. Only nouns, you don't win a prize.
Nouns, you
lose.
Yeah, losing them. Automated clearinghouse. It's right here in the article, right in front of me too. It is operated by the Federal Reserve.
So they want to get rid of that and go into FedNow.
And the electronic payment network. And I think that's where it's going because they are testing out a new system called FedNow, which is supposed to be a faster reconciliation system. It's not a digital currency, they say, but it probably will facilitate ultimately the Federal Reserve Bank's digital currency, the CBDC.
Yep. Well,
and again, once you've got that going, then not only can they track your purchases, they can control it by saying, you're outside your 15-minute city limit.
Yeah.
Your cholesterol's too high. You can't have that ice cream.
Well, so many things will be controlled, and we will be told what we can and cannot do. We'll be told what we must think.
Yep. Yeah, well, as in NatWest, you're not just your carbon footprints. Like we've been the Chinese social credit score. We've looked at your X account, and you tweeted some things that might be construed as anti-fill in the blank. So, we're going to just rein you in for a bit.
Yep, that day is coming.
We're not going to renew your subscription for your blue check.
And imagine when an advanced AI is actually in charge of making all these decisions.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah.
Image of the beast is coming.
Yep.
We want to just really quickly before we go get back to what's going on in Israel because it's more than just Gaza. There are a lot of attacks coming from Lebanon. Now Yemen has joined the battle and declared war. The Houthis have declared war. I pronounced it Houthi or Houthi. I've heard it both ways.
Yeah.
So that group, the rebels, who are backed by Iran. The rebels are Shia, by the way.
Yep.
They are now at war with Israel.
Yeah, and that's really creates some interesting dynamics there because the Houthis on the one side, backed by Iran, are very anti-Israel. The Saudis have said that the talks that were underway with Israel, part of the Abraham Accords or the continuing discussions of the Abraham Accords, were off. They were not going to normalize politically, there's no way they could do it, because our Arab brothers are being, attacked or whatever. Okay, fine. So the Saudis are anti-Israel, but they're also at war with the Houthis in Yemen. So, okay, who do they side with? The Turks, coming back to the Turks, they've just recalled their ambassador to Jerusalem.
Yes.
So their ambassador, that's like, okay, we've broken off relations with Israel again.
Absolutely.
And they just restored relations just a few months ago.
I know. It's just... Another thing that just happened was the visa exchange program between Israel and the United States. In other words, when Aaron Lipkin comes here next time, and still in place, he will not have to get a visa. He can just come and visit.
There's also a bill that's been proposed in Congress that would, on the flip side, would make it much more difficult for people living in the Palestinian territories to get into the country and perhaps even to expel Palestinians who are here if they've expressed pro-Hamas sentiments. So,
well, this is a developing story. It is moving so quickly.
Yeah.
Talking to you once a week is just not going to do it. So pay attention to Derek's daily updates on Skywatch TV, the 5 and 10. If you don't watch those, then you're not getting the important news. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you, sweetheart.
And you're not getting those great eyebrows.
Well,
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, and it's not breaking news there either, but we're trying to at least daily.
It's analysis, and that's what really matters.
Brief analysis, yeah. We will look back on this period of time, I predict, as the early stage of World War III.
Oh, you and I have been saying that for months and months, that we're looking at the World War III starting to step up, the very, very, as you say, the early stages. And I would say the Ukraine was part of that.
Oh, I agree. And just coming out today as we're recording this on Saturday, November 4th, the news that very quietly now European and U.S. government officials are kind of behind the scenes telling Vladimir Zelensky, you need to sit down with Russia and negotiate peace.
By the way, okay, sorry, finish that.
Because Ukraine has been pushed to the back burner, and it's become clear now that we're into November that the summer offensive that was supposed to retake Crimea, in fact, the chief of staff of the military there, commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian military, admitted in an interview with The Economist in London that they, based on what information and guidance they had been given by NATO, they figured it would take about 4 months, and in 4 months' time, they would retake the Crimea and reintegrate it into Ukraine. Okay, Russia's held the Ukraine since 2014. That obviously hasn't happened. They didn't get close to Crimea. They barely made it. According to what I read, as of like 6 weeks ago, they'd recovered about 1/2% of the territory that Russia had conquered, had taken in the early stages of the war.
Propaganda.
So, yeah, Ukraine is basically, and sadly, Ukraine is burning through an entire generation of young men for a pointless war that was being pushed by, and trying not to get angry here, but when you see American politicians like Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham calling it a good investment, we're weakening Russia and it's not costing us that much money. Oh, really? Talk to the Ukrainians about how much it's costing them, how many lives they've lost, how many people have been displaced, how many people have left the country because we Americans think that it's a good investment to weaken Vladimir Putin.
War is a racket.
Sorry.
No, I understand. I understand completely. There was one more thing I was going to say, and now I've lost it. What was it?
Israel, World War III, Ukraine.
I know what I was going to say. Here's the thing. Here, we're going to leave you with this. Put on your tinfoil hat. Put your tinfoil hat on. Sorry. Put on your tinfoil hat. I just found out, you may already know this, that the United States has a secret base in the Negev in Israel at Har Haren, Mount Haren.
Mount Horns.
Yes, Mount Horns. Very good.
That's
the same root word for Kronos.
Kronos, yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. It's like calling it Mount Doom.
May as well. It's not terribly high, but it's a very mountainous region. And if you look on Google Earth, you'll see it.
Yeah. Qeren.
Yeah.
Karen.
Now, there used to be, probably centuries ago, maybe even millennia ago, there was a quarry there because archaeologists have found some of the old tools that were used that would have been used in a typical quarry. So, this is when it was mentioned, and I can't remember who had actually brought it up to begin with, the response was from the United States was, no, that's not a U.S. secret base. That's where the men who are assigned to embedded with the Israeli Air Force, where they live.
Yeah, what are they calling it? Site 512.
Site 512, that's it.
Yeah, huh.
So there you go. Got your hat on?
What's interesting is that this is a radar facility, currently a U.S. radar facility, but it didn't see any of the rockets coming from Gaza because they're all pointed east towards Iran.
Oh. That is interesting. So, bottom line here, the United States is in Israel, has been in Israel, cooperates with Israel, helps create technology with Israel. In fact, one of the missiles that's being used as part of the Arrow 3 system in Israel, which was just deployed to take out the missile fired at Israel from Yemen. It's an anti-missile system. The Arrow 3, if I remember correctly, is hypersonic. And it was, which is interesting, but it was created and manufactured as a joint venture between the U.S. and Israel, which I think is hilarious because the U.S. has not been able to create on its own a hypersonic missile system.
Yeah, it's Israel Aerospace Industries and Boeing. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So there you go.
I think it's interesting.
Mount Kronos.
The Intercept, which is the one that reported on Site 512, they refer to it as Mount Har Karen. Not understanding
Mount Har
Har is the Hebrew word for mount or mountain. Har Karen is Mount Karen. Anyway, it's Mount Karen.
It's Mount Doom.
Hashtag number sign. Call back to the Obama administration.
It is indeed. Well, we are just so happy that you listen to us every week, and you know what? Like I said, we've been at this for a long, long time, and Derek and I have a tendency to blather on. We've probably gone past an hour.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we couldn't help it.
First broadcast from the barn.
The barn correctly with lots and lots of blather. Look at all the blather on the walls.
Yeah, and the rabbit trails already.
Oh, bunny trail.
Tomorrow morning, our weekly Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, will come to you for the first time from the barn.
From the barn.
And tomorrow evening, the View from the Bunker interview is with, who is it with? Who did I just, I just uploaded it yesterday. How is it that I've forgotten who it is already?
Somebody. Well, let's figure out who that is.
Sean Tabbitt on near-death experiences. A good friend, Sean Tabbitt, who we've known for years, he and Randy Kay have co-authored several books on near-death experiences. This is the most recent of those. And it's rather poignant because Sean and his wife, Lynette, have been dealing with the reality of her inoperable brain tumor for the last 14 months now.
His research has really helped to, based on what Sean has said, his research seems to have really helped to calm her fears.
Yeah.
We can all I can sit here and say, well, I can't wait to see Jesus. But when that moment comes, especially if you have a long lead up to it, you have a long time to think about it.
You do, yeah. But this is, they were very careful. He'll explain why they chose the stories they did. Not every account of a near-death experience is, you've got to be discerning. Mm-hmm. And the ones they chose were based on some very good criteria. One of the things I found most interesting was their discovery that many of the people who claim that they were brought back, that the angel or whatever entity it was that reached into wherever they were and brought them back, said it was because your mother or your grandmother had been praying for you.
Oh, I love that.
And don't know if that means the prayers of women are more effective or just we men need to really up our prayer game, which that may be the takeaway from this. But so, fascinating interview. That'll be released at 7 p.m. Central Time Sunday. And we hope you take advantage of that because it really is a comfort, I think.
I think so, too. Yeah. So while we're on social media and we still have the freedom to express ourselves, understand that there are going to be a lot of people that disagree with you, a lot of people that say things that really make you angry. But don't respond with anger. Respond with kindness. Respond with love. Share the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is our mandate. We're not called to be political.
Yeah.
We're not called to try to defend an ideology other than the gospel. That's
Amen.
it. That is it.
Until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.